Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in a bit of news for you, there are some potentially huge changes coming to several Overwatch heroes on the PTR very soon. In an official forum post last night, Jeff Goodman took to the boards, talking about some changes that may come into play on live, but they're going to be on the PTR for us to test. As always, all of these updates are subject to change, but they're a big change to Overwatch if they do hit live in this state, giving several heroes a big lease of life in a new Orisa state of the game when she releases, addressing potential creep with the additional barriers in Overwatch on top of Reinhardt's shield, and taking a bit of a large nerf bat to the admittedly quite strong toolkit and survivability of Ana. Let's go through all the heroes and changes for you, along with some basic thoughts as to how they might change things and affect you in your day-to-day matches. Firstly, Ana. Well, she's getting both tweaks to her damage from her biotic rifle and a hit further to her biotic grenade. Biotic rifle's damage is down from 80 to 60, and the grenade gets reduced damage on impact from 60 to 30, with healing being reduced from 100 to 50. Now, this has several hits to Ana's strength in different areas. She particularly now has to hit 3 bullets and a melee or a grenade instead of 2 and a grenade to kill a 200 HP hero. That's a pretty big change, considering Ana was very strong if you had a bit of aim and a bit of nous about throwing your grenade against flankers. So if you throw a sleep dart, it's no longer going to quite so easily convert to a solo kill on, say, a tracer. The change in the grenade also decreases Ana's self-healing. She was very able to throw that grenade down, grab that 100 and escape pretty quickly. So this is going to mean that flankers attacking her are going to have a little bit of a better time or finishing her off in a one-on-one, and indeed anyone who's dueling her. The other big thing here is that Ana's bullets now take 4 shots to kill at some range now, and that is pretty big for a player like me who has to, in my level, use Ana a lot to try and harass or counter Pharahs. That could help Pharah come into play even more at lower levels. Pharah mains rejoice. The solo Ana healer that you saw in several solo queue setups might be a thing of the past. She will still retain a bunch of skill, but she's a bit less strong against flankers and in dueling situations, as well as being a little bit less survivable. She's definitely more vulnerable due to not being able to top her health up so quickly with so much of a burst. Ah, Granna, I'm going to miss you. I know you're a bit strong, even in my incompetent hands, but this feels a little bit heavy to me. Who knows? It's not a minor tweak, and we'll have to see how viable Ana is. She'll still be in play, I think, but probably just a bit more on the edge of things, particularly with changes to another support that are coming. Okay, on to Junkrat. He no longer is going to hurt himself from his own explosions, and this effect has been added to his current passive Total Mayhem. Now, I for one welcome our Junkrat semi-suicide bomber overlords, but more seriously, this is going to encourage Junkrat players to get more in people's faces, right up faces of those barriers and trying to break them down, rather than spamming from far away, trying to land some hits and probably just feeding a bit of ultimate charge for the enemy team. Hopefully Junkrat also won't be able to kill himself with Riptire as well. That would just be a nice little tweak for you Junkrats, myself included, who sometimes have to throw it out and somewhat panic detonate it when you're a little bit too close. Given Orisa's new barrier, this gives Junkrat a push towards getting more involved and being in play to demolish those barriers, so maybe expect to see him in play a little bit more. Orisa, well, she's already got changes. She's not going to be out today. That's Tuesday the 7th of March on the PTR. Her fusion driver has got a lowered magazine size from 200 to 150, and Supercharger, her ultimate, has had its cost bumped up just a little bit by 15%. Now, I get these changes. She did feel pretty strong on the PTR in the couple of quick play matches I got to play her with in a 1 hero limit setting. Huge magazine she has. The damage of her fusion driver is pretty solid, and it did feel like you were shredding things, or certainly with the suppressive fire element of it, able to suppress for a long period of time without too much consequence, and indeed chew against other people's barriers as well. So this will mean a little bit more caution and thinking with Orisa's projectiles than holding down LMB straight up. I think this makes sense, particularly with some of the other changes that will help getting through barriers that are coming to Zenyatta, which we'll get onto in a second. Right, Sombra. Well, people have thought that she's been a little bit of an edge case pick for a while. She's certainly got a lot of abuse when it comes to your standard competitive pick. However, she's getting a stealth change. Sound effects and VO distance for entering and exiting stealth are going to be reduced to 15 meters, and her translocator gets a cooldown reduction from 6 seconds to 4. Now, a lot of people have mentioned this. Sombra being quieter is a sort of buff for her, less arrogant, shall we say, about announcing herself when leaving her stealth. 15 meters, remember, is the distance of a hack, roughly. So this gives Sombra the ability to get closer without detection by sound before popping up for a hack at a closer range. That's going to be pretty important in terms of Sombra's general survivability. The noise that she made when coming out of her stealth, like "miss me" and all that kind of stuff, really made her quite obvious if you were listening out for her. Now, Translocator is a pretty big change. Here's an example of a use. Sombra can throw down a beacon, she can then go into stealth, she can then teleport to her Translocator and throw out another beacon before stealth has even finished. So she has a lot less downtime. She's going to get sort sort of a step change in pace. She can be a lot more sneaky beaky, I think. And of course, let's not forget that Sombra's Emp or hack is another way to get into the barriers of covering teams when Orisa launches or into a Bastion nest. Getting her nicely set up for her Emp is going to pull Sombra in a little bit into more viability. She could be pretty good already if her team supported her. This is going to make her that extra little step in terms of getting into the action. If you see a good Sombra in your team, give them a chance. If this change goes through, I think she's going to be pretty nice. Okay, Winston, well, he was getting a bit of a tweak recently. His barrier projector is now getting an additional little upgrade. The cooldown now starts when barrier is placed instead of when it ends. So recently, Winston had his critical hitbox reduced last patch. He can now use shields more often, most simply, but this may also have a little passive stealth tweak with the Discord buff that Zenyatta is getting that I'll explain. So Zenyatta is going to be able to throw Discord through shields. I'll explain that fully when we cover him. But Winston's little lightning tickler was always something at a pinch you could harass people through shields with. It would penetrate barriers. Now those Reinhardts and anyone on the front line behind a barrier can be discorded through the barrier. Winston can throw a little bit more damage on the front line before leaping away. So pretty nice. I think this is going to make Winston a little bit stronger. And remember, of course, that at pro levels of play, people do like to pick a Winston quite a bit anyway. Although Winston might not see so much play in competitive on a day-to-day basis at our level, then maybe we'll see a little bit more of him. Pretty nice. Okay, finally Zenyatta. So some pretty chunky changes to our favourite Omnic Monk. Orb of Destruction, alternate fire recovery is going to be reduced from 1 second to 0.6 seconds. So he's going to be able to come out of that a little bit faster. And Orb of Discord, this is the huge one, can now target enemies through barriers. Now, this makes Zenyatta a super strong pick against barrier tanks, Reinhardt and Orisa. In the Orisa dev update, if we just jump back to that, Jeff Kaplan did mention that the Overwatch team knew that people had concerns about barriers in Overwatch. Now, I think this is just referring to the Rein versus Rein fight of breaking down the shield with Soldier 76 and all of your DPS that a lot of people have mentioned being a little bit of a frustration with the recent meta. This is now the flip side of that. If this change makes it to live, Zen is going to be super strong against barrier tanks, Discord will help him pick out targets so much more easily, and if flankers are playing like Tracer or anything around the edges, people who get behind those shields are going to be putting out a lot more damage on the front line and be able to burst these characters down a lot more, weaken them a lot more quickly. Zen can also stay a lot further away and safer. As a Zenyatta, I'm not a great player, but I found myself having to dance around the edges as a Zen player to try and sneak a Discord orb through the barrier to make sure that I at least had someone discorded for the flankers or splash DPS characters to aim at. Now this should make him a lot safer, and he won't have to wait for a shield to be melted through before he can be picking out targets and putting people under pressure. These changes will be on the PTR pretty soon, so do get on there if you can download it on PC and try them out. So what do you think of these proposed changes? Are you an Ana fan like I, and a bit sad at her, well, decreased survivability mainly? She was pretty strong, perhaps a little bit too strong in all areas, not that I'd want to admit it, of course. Have Sombra and Winston finally had their time come for a season? And to combat the Bastion Omnic crisis of recent, although I think the tweak to his Ironclad passive recently has helped a bunch with that, as well as all the new barrier action with Orisa's eventual launch, will the new Grandmaster healer alongside Lucio be Zenyatta for a period of time, alongside perhaps Mercy with her nice invulnerability buff she's received when throwing out Resurrect? Do let me know how the changes recently have been changing your games, and how you think that these new set of changes will affect your daily games of Overwatch in the comments. Do you like them? Dislike them? Do let me know. Thanks for tuning in. Lore vids are returning this week. If you like Overwatch lore, story and news with a bit of a different twist, do check out my playlists. Throw a like, subscribe or comment as well. I'd love to hear from you, and it really helps me out. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.